just listening to a tango from Kurt Weill's Threepenny Opera, recorded on 78s in 1930 by the Louis Ruth Band. This German band played the original performances of Threepenny Opera, led by Louis Ruth, who changed his name from Ludwig Ruth in order to sound more like an American. Kurt Weill and his Berlin audience shared a powerful attraction to American culture. Weill's European education endowed him with sophistication and exceptional skill, but the key to his success always lay in his passion for making a direct musical connection with his audiences regardless of their background. He rejected any distinction between high and low art. From the Weimar years through the rise of Hitler, the escape from Nazi Germany and an interlude in Paris, to his final years writing musicals for Broadway, Kurt Weill reacted to a changing world and fashioned its image in music. The performances you're about to see will provide you with an overview of Kurt Weill's life and his artistic trajectory. The languages changed from German to French to English, as did Weill's mastery of theatrical and musical expectations. As he passed from the realm of German opera all the way to the American stage, he demonstrated an unfailing ear for the defining style and atmosphere of each period. At the same time, he became adept at the genre bending that would be a hallmark of 20th century art. Today, we have access to 100 years of audio and filmed performances of Kurt Weill's music. The performances I've chosen come from very different eras, but they're the ones that stood out, revealing the dramatic potential of Weill's songs, as well as his uniquely expressive musical language. Kurt Weill was born in central Germany in 1900, which makes it very easy to keep track of how old he was at the time of the many earth-shaking events that took place in his lifetime. He came from one of the oldest Jewish families in Germany, tracing a lineage of rabbis and cantors back to the 14th century. His own father was a successful cantor in Dessau, home of the Bauhaus School of Design, and a city of abundant cultural richness. Kurt's musical aspirations were eagerly supported by his entire family. There were 2 older brothers and a younger sister, all thrilled by their siblings' extraordinary gifts. Kurt's childhood was happy and secure, but after the deprivations of World War I came the war reparations and runaway inflation. With no funds for a cantor at the Dessau synagogue, the Weill family experienced hunger, insecurity, and a relocation to Leipzig. Throughout these years, Kurt Weill was receiving an excellent musical education. Even during the chaos of World War I, when he wrote nationalistic military songs in praise of the fatherland, he was persistently mastering his craft. His fanatic work habits were a source of awe to everyone around him. As a young college student in Berlin, Weill supported the progressive ideals of the November Group, an alliance of young artists and architects attempting to renew art and politics in post-war Germany. This ferment led to the establishment of Germany's first democracy, the Weimar Republic, named for its capital in Weimar. Along with the chaos and hyperinflation, Germany, and especially Berlin, was experiencing a remarkable cultural renaissance. By the time Weill completed his musical education, he was interacting with Busoni, Schoenberg, Hindemith, and Stravinsky. The prohibitive cost of living in Vienna had deterred him from joining Schoenberg's circle, but there was mutual recognition. Between 1918 and 1925, Kurt Weill wrote an abundance of mainly atonal chamber music. Although these projects were well received in their limited milieu, Weill was becoming more and more interested in theater and opera. He said, "I'm not looking for new musical forms or theories. I'm looking for a new audience." This first song was written in 1924 just as Weill was teetering at the edge of his classical training before jumping into musical theater with both feet. The lyrics are a comic street rhyme that was popular in Weimar Berlin. A man who suffers a personality split is eating meatballs. He hears a knock at the door, opens it, and finds himself. Weill's parody of an expressionist art song demonstrates his sense of humor as well as his mastery of counterpoint and orchestration. Here's H.K. Gruber with the Ensemble Moderne singing the Meatball Song.
Ich sitze da und esse Klops, auf einmal Klops. Ich kicke, staune, wundere mir, auf einmal jitze auf die Tür. Na nu, denk ich denk na nu, jetzt ist sie auf, erst war sie zu. Ich gehe heraus und blicke, und wer steht raus? Icke.
Weill's increasing interest in song and the stage brought him into contact with poets and dramatists. He was determined to create something new, in particular, a way to smooth out the troubling incompatibility between spoken drama and sung lyrics. His first collaboration with the expressionist playwright Georg Kaiser resulted in a breakthrough one-act opera, The Protagonist. Weill's sophisticated music brought him immediate notoriety and approval. The collaboration with Kaiser also had an unexpected impact on his private life. Kaiser and his wife had engaged a talented young dancer and actress as a summer au pair for their children. Weill's first meeting with Lotte Lenya was in the Kaiser's boat on a lake outside Berlin. It was love at first sight, and in the fall they began living together. Lenya's background of child abuse and sporadic prostitution couldn't have been more different than Weill's protected Jewish upbringing. But they complemented each other. She was playful, confident, sexy, and unfaithful, but she always returned to the security and creativity of their life together. Weill wrote his parents that Lenya was responsible for a new confidence in his music. It was becoming more free and simple. He always imagined the new songs he was writing in her voice. Weill became interested in Bertolt Brecht in 1927 when he reviewed one of Brecht's comic radio plays. Brecht was a political radical and well known for his provocative antics. But Weill was impressed by Brecht's superb German, his knowledge of history and his way of thinking. He believed that Brecht's plays would have a lasting impact on German theater. As soon as they met, they set to work on their first collaboration, which is now known as the Mahagonny Songspiel, or the Little Mahagonny. Weill had recently received a commission to create a stage work that would challenge operatic norms. It was to have a small cast, a chamber ensemble rather than an orchestra, and minimal sets. Weill and Brecht agreed that poems from Brecht's ironic collection, The Manual of Piety, would form the basis of the story. Weill made use of a song form commonly used in American popular music, numerous verses alternating with a refrain. The small ensemble was typical of an American dance band, featuring a few winds, 2 violins, piano, and percussion. The music was aggressively rhythmic and consciously primitive, with Weill's frequent arcs of stunning melody. It was music that would attract a new audience. The innovative one-act Mahagonny would later morph into a full-sized production, The Rise and Fall of Mahagonny. In both works, Brecht criticized the evils of urban life with the American city as the quintessential example. But while American society was portrayed as corrupt and bourgeois, The popularity of Mahagonny was based on the fascination German audiences had for everything American. Two of the show's songs were in a primitive English that could be understood by many Germans. The action takes place in the gold fields out west, where four men have established an outpost, a pleasure city, to escape the evils of capitalism. Soon a group of prostitutes arrive, hoping to cash in on the action, but still longing for their original home in Alabama. The story is somewhat muddled, but it was definitely avant-garde. You're about to hear excerpts from two completely different performances of Moon of Alabama. In the first, young Lenya is singing in a 1930 recording with Weill's original orchestration. Despite her untrained voice and inability to read music, Lenya created a new kind of role for musical theater. Her acting ability and declamatory style mesmerized the audience.
Oh, show us the way to the next whiskey bar.
Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why.
For we must find the next whiskey bar. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar,
I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die.
I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die. Oh, moon of Alabama, we now must say goodbye. We've lost our good old mama and must have whiskey, oh, you know why. Oh, moon of Alabama.
This video is an excerpt from LA Opera's 2007 production. Although Audra McDonald commands the stage with a far different range of talents than Lenya's, both productions demonstrate the charisma of the strange and extraordinary music that the 27-year-old Kurt Weill created.
Oh, show us the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For we must find the next whiskey bar. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
In 1928, Weill, Brecht, and their wives traveled to the French Riviera to concentrate on a new theater piece that would become the Threepenny Opera. The work was written in a white heat and opened in Berlin just 3 months later. It created a sensation and would come to define the Weimar era. Within a year, there were 4,200 performances at 120 different theaters. Within 3 years, there were recordings in 18 languages. Threepenny Fever was everywhere. I'm going to give you a glimpse of what the production looked and sounded like in the early days, and also show you what contemporary artists have done with some of the songs. According to Brecht, the point of the work was to demonstrate that there was no real character difference between thieves and respectable citizens. For his critique of bourgeois hypocrisy and lifestyle, Brecht adapted a popular 18th century English play, John Gay's Beggar's Opera. Brecht shocked his audience by sympathetically presenting crooks, pickpockets, pimps, and prostitutes singing abrasive and bawdy lyrics to Weill's engaging tunes. The most famous song, Mac the Knife, only made it into the show the day before the premiere. At the last minute, Brecht and Weill decided that the main character should be introduced with a little song about his gruesome and disgraceful deeds. This first video features Brecht himself singing one of the hit songs. We see footage of Brecht, Weill, and Lenya, and Brecht enjoying the car he was able to buy with the profits from Threepenny Opera. Listen for Weill's original instrumentation, the jazz band pit orchestra.
Der Mensch lebt durch den Kopf, der Kopf reicht ihm nicht aus. Versuch es nur von deinem Kopf, lebt höchstens eine Laus. Denn für dieses Leben ist der Mensch nicht schlau genug.
Brecht, Weill, and Lenya were an unbeatable combination. As in Mahagonny, Lenya's acting ability and audience appeal shaped the plot. Pirate Jenny became one of her most famous roles. Here's an excerpt of her performance in the 1930 film version of Threepenny Opera. This is what Lenya's voice and acting were like at the time of the original production.
Und es werden kommen 100 gegen Mittag an Land und werden in den Schatten treten und fangen einen jeglichen vor jeglicher Tür und legen in Ketten und bringen ihn mir und mich fragen, welchen sollen wir töten? Und mich fragen, welchen sollen wir töten? Und an diesem Mittag wird es still sein am Hafen, wenn man fragt, wer wohl sterben muss. Und da werden sie mich sagen hören, alle. Und wenn dann der Kopf fällt, sage ich, hoppla. Und das Schiff mit 8 Segeln und mit 50 Kanonen wird entschwinden mit mir.
The first successful adaptation of Threepenny Opera into English was made in 1954 by the composer Mark Blitzstein. In that production, Lenya played Jenny and the young Leonard Bernstein conducted. Years later, when Lenya was 68, she filmed another version for American television. It was 1966, and Kurt Weill had been dead for 16 years.
Gentlemen can watch while I'm scrubbing the floors, and I'm scrubbing the floors while you're gawking. And maybe once you tip me and it makes you feel swell, and a ratty waterfront in a ratty old hotel, and you never guess to who you are talking. You never guess to who you are talking. Suddenly one night there's a scream in the night, and you yell, what the hell could that have been? And you see me kinda grinning while I'm scrubbing, and you say, what the hell's she got to grin? And a ship, a black freighter, with a skull on its masthead, will be coming in
As you can see, there have been many famous pirate jennies over the years. The most recent is probably this one from a video game. But one of the greatest performances of this renowned song was given by Nina Simone at Carnegie Hall in 1964 when she was 31.
You people can watch while I'm scrubbing these floors, and I'm scrubbing the floors while you're gawking. Maybe once you tip me and it makes you feel swell in this crummy southern town, in this crummy old hotel, but you'll never guess to who you're talking. No, you could never guess to who you're talking. Then one night there's a scream in the night, and you wonder who could that have been? And you see me kinda grinning while I'm scrubbing, and you say, what she got to grin? I'll tell you, there's a ship, the black freighter with a skull on its masthead will be coming in.
Another hit song from Threepenny Opera is known as the Cannon Song. We hear a macho description of the soldier's life with Brecht's anti-war lyrics and Weill at his most savagely rhythmic. Johnny, Jimmy, and Georgie are living among the cannons, marching across the continent from the Cape to Kush Behar, killing the brown and pale races, eating them up like steak tartare. This electrifying performance is by the Russian-born singer Vladimir Kornev, supported by his fearless accompanist.
John ist gestorben und Jimmy ist tot und Georgie ist vermisst und verdorben. Aber Blut ist immer noch rot, für die Armee wird jetzt wieder geworben.
Weill filled his music with popular dance forms like the foxtrot, the shimmy, and above all, the tango, his favorite. In Threepenny Opera, the pimp, Mackie, and Jenny the whore sing a nostalgic tango ballad recalling earlier years when they were young and in love. Ute Lemper's contemporary performance of this song captures the expressionistic hedonism of Weimar culture and its cabaret.
Ich immer weggeschickt zum Arbeiten, weißt du noch? In jener Zeit, die längst vergangen ist, war er mein Freund und ich war ein junges Ding. Und wenn kein Schaster war, hat er mich angehauen. Da hieß es gleich, du, ich versetze jetzt deinen Ring. Ein Ring ist gut, doch ohne geht's auch. Da wurde ich aber tückisch, ja, na weißte. Ich fragte ihn manchmal richtig, was er sich erdreiste. Da hatte er mir aber eins ins Zahnfleisch gelangt. Da bin ich manchmal richtig drauf weggerannt. Es war so schön in diesem halben Jahr, in dem Bordell, wo unser alter Mann
Unlike the saccharine operettas of Vienna or Wagner's lavish mythic theater, Threepenny Opera showed Berlin theatergoers themselves, their modernity, their cynicism, and their desire for an art that reflected reality rather than beautifying it. Meanwhile, the fascist forces of Hitler were on the rise, responding to modernity and to inflation with a completely different strategy. For them, Threepenny Opera was the ultimate example of degenerate art, and Nazi protests frequently interfered with the performances. Kurt Weill was at the top of Hitler's extermination list, right after Schoenberg. The giddy happiness and prosperity that swept through the Weill family with the unimaginable success of Threepenny Opera can be seen in the happy faces of these photos. They had no idea what was about to happen to them. The relationship of Brecht and Weill was beginning to fray. Although Weill's even temperament had always balanced Brecht's egotism, there were now political differences and incompatible views on the function of theater in society. Their next show, Happy End, was a flop, even though it contained some of Weill's most beautiful songs. Despite Brecht's own sexual opportunism, his lyrics always conveyed deep affection for women. His best characters were often prostitutes who'd either lost their ability to love or were erotically entangled with a bad man. This intuitive sympathy for women was shared by Weill. When he set Brecht's lyrics, his melodies, phrasing, and edgy harmonies gave a singing actress unprecedented opportunities for character development. This performance of Surabaya Johnny from Happy End is by Teresa Stratas. Her album, The Unknown Kurt Weill, initiated the enthusiastic revival of Weill's European songs in 1981. In case you wonder about the name Surabaya Johnny, you may have noticed that many of Brecht's place names are chosen for their sound and superficial associations, for example, Mahagonny and Alabama. Surabaya is a port city in Java.
Warum bist du so rot? Surabaya, Johnny. Mein Gott, und ich liebe dich so.
Weill's political disagreements with Brecht caused him to reunite with Georg Kaiser for the last work he wrote in Germany, called Silver Lake. Lenya had suddenly decided to end their marriage. Her career had taken off, and she wanted to enjoy her freedom. Weill, as always, yielded to her needs. The two continued to work together and maintained close contact through letters. Silver Lake was a failure, and caricatures and criticism of Kurt Weill were appearing everywhere. Weill remained absorbed in his work, confident that German culture would ultimately prevail over Hitler. He was alone now. His parents were about to move to Palestine, and Brecht had already left for Norway. When Hitler was appointed chancellor in 1933, Weill began to receive threats. There was a frantic telephone warning, and then in the dead of night, he had to be driven by friends across the German border with only the clothes on his back. He never set foot on German soil again. Weill was at first welcomed in Paris, where his work was well known. His financial situation was precarious because his German assets had been confiscated. He'd lost both his home and his possessions. He believed to the end of his life that all his German scores were destroyed by the Nazis. Only much later decades after the war and after his death, was most of his early work recovered. It had been secretly protected by devoted supporters who treasured it along with their memories of the Weimar years. Marlene Dietrich was now living in Hollywood and wrote to Weill suggesting that he write something for her. Although Dietrich never learned the farewell letter, it was Weill's final portrait of life in Berlin in the early 1930s, with lyrics by the German poet and satirist Erich Kästner. I couldn't find a good performance with subtitles, but I'll fill you in on the story, and then you'll be free to listen for the witty and unpredictable harmonic and melodic maneuvers. These would never be part of Kurt Weill's musical language again. The artist is Annette Zaltgen. Here's the story. A woman is sitting in the Hotel Bauer. After waiting for her lover for 2 hours, she decides to write him a letter. To avoid getting dumped herself, she tells him to get lost. After reminding him of tender moments in their relationship, she reports that there's another man at the next table. He's the manager of the Engelhorn Hotel, and she's leaving with him. Bug off and kiss my ass, she says, signing her letter, with all my heart, your friend, Erna Schmidt.
Du bist der Erste nicht, der so verschwindet, das hab ich nicht an dir verdient, mein gutes Kind. Du glaubst doch nicht, dass sich nicht noch ein anderer findet. Es gibt noch welche, die bequemer für mich sind. Ich hab das grüne Auge aufs Popelin, das Loch drin hast du auch hineingerissen. Du weißt, es reicht mir, du bist zu den Knien. Ich hab auch noch ein angefangenes Kissen, das solltest du am heiligen Abend kriegen. Das ist nun aus und mir auf einerlei. Es werden öfters andere darauf liegen, denn was vorbei ist, Schatz, denn was vorbei ist, Schatz, das ist vorbei.
Among the works from Weill's 2.5 years in Paris was the tango Youkali. Weill wrote the music in 1934 as an instrumental interlude for his French theater piece, Marie Galante. He had no lyrics in mind, but a world-weary longing for escape was communicated in every phrase. 14 years later, the French poet Roger Fernet wrote words to this music, including the fantasy place name Youkali. The performance I've chosen for Youkali is taken from a recent documentary about the opera singer and conductor Barbara Hannigan. In this excerpt, she's rehearsing the song with Sir Simon Rattle. Their musicianship is outstanding, but you'll have to put up with a few incongruous cuts to other moments in Barbara Hannigan's career.
C'est presque au bout du monde, ma barque vagabonde, errant au gré de l'onde, m'y conduisit un jour, l'île toute petite, et la fille qui l'habite, gentiment nous invite à en faire le tour. Youkali, c'est le pays de nos désirs. Youkali, c'est le bonheur, c'est le plaisir. Youkali, c'est la terre l'on quitte tous les soucis. C'est notre éclaircir l'étoile qu'on suit. C'est Youkali, c'est le respect de tous les vœux échangés. Youkali, c'est le pays de nos amours partagés.
Weill was prolific during his Paris years, writing 3 musical plays and a 2nd symphony, as well as his exquisitely French-tinged songs. Lenya had been on her own for 2 years and was tired of her life without Weill, so the two began living together again. Weill started work on a biblical music drama, The Eternal Road, collaborating with the famous German director Max Reinhardt, who was also in exile. The piece was intended to dramatize the plight of Jews in Germany, and of course it tapped into Weill's deep roots in Judaism. With escalating anti-Semitism in France, a decision was made to move the premiere of The Eternal Road to New York. So in September 1935, Kurt Weill and Lotte Lenya sailed to America, hoping to find secure employment until they could return to Germany. The following years were the most difficult of Weill's life. He was learning English and adapting to a new professional world. He met George and Ira Gershwin and interacted with major theatrical personalities in both New York and Los Angeles. When The Eternal Road was finally produced, it was a financial disaster due to the expense of its 245 actors and expensive sets. Weill and Lenya were increasingly disheartened by events in Germany. They remarried and decided to apply for U.S. citizenship, which would take them 8 years to obtain. Weill now embraced American history and culture with enthusiasm. He wrote numerous film scores and several new musicals, including Knickerbocker Holiday with Maxwell Anderson and One Touch of Venus with Ogden Nash. September Song and Speak Low were his first 2 American hits. Here he is singing and playing Speak Low with his charming German accent.
Speak low when you speak low. Our summer day withers away. Too soon, too soon. Speak low when you speak low. Our moment is swift, like ships adrift. We are swept apart too soon. Speak low, darling, speak low. Love is a spark lost in the dark. Too soon, too soon. I feel wherever I go that tomorrow is near, tomorrow is here, and always too soon. Time is so old and love so brief. Love is pure gold and time a thief. We are late, darling, we are late. The curtain descends, everything ends. Too soon, too soon. I wait, darling, I wait. Will you speak low to me, speak love to me, and soon?
Bertolt Brecht had by now moved to the U.S. He and Weill saw each other intermittently and tried to find common ground for another collaboration, or at least a revival of Threepenny Opera in English. Brecht had written lyrics for a song called Nanna's Lied. He'd initially imagined the song would be sung by Lenya, but it became part of another Brecht production with music by Hans Eisler. Although there was little hope for publication, Weill and Lenya loved the lyrics of Nanna's song, so Weill created his own setting as a gift to Lenya. They performed it for Brecht in New York the last time they were all together. Brecht's poetry, with its poignant François Villon refrain, is wonderfully served by Weill's Schubertian setting. This performance is by Anne-Sophie van Otter.
Meine Herren, mit 17 Jahren kam ich auf den Liebesmarkt und ich habe viel erfahren. Böses gab es viel, doch das war das Spiel. Aber manches habe ich doch verargt. Schließlich bin ich ja auch ein Mensch. Gott sei Dank geht alles schnell vorüber, auch die Liebe und der Kummer sogar. Wo sind die Tränen von gestern Abend? Wo ist der Schnee vom vergangenen Jahr? Wo sind die Tränen von gestern Abend? Wo ist der Schnee vom vergangenen Jahr? Freilich geht man.
When Weill and Lenya became American citizens in 1943, Weill stopped considering himself a German composer and corrected anyone who said he was. He no longer spoke German, except when he wrote to his parents. He seized every opportunity to contribute to the war effort. After he and Lenya bought a house in upstate New York, Weill patrolled the night skies during the winter months for possible German aircraft. He wrote patriotic songs in English to support the troops and songs in German to be broadcast behind enemy lines by the War Department. One of these songs was his coded message to the German people, Wie lange noch? How much longer? This text by Weill's fellow German émigré Walter Mehring can be understood as the feelings of desperate Germans destroyed by their love affair with Hitler. Here it is, sung by Julia Bullock in a recent Tiny Desk concert. Kurt Weill collaborated on many more works for musical theater, including Lady in the Dark with Ira Gershwin and Moss Hart, and Street Scene with Langston Hughes. He had an impeccable ability to capture the flavor of American song and to communicate the shades of meaning in the English texts. His American songs drew from the musical vernacular of jazz and American folk music, leaving behind his earlier German musical style. Weill still felt there was an awkwardness when spoken drama was combined with sung musical forms. Almost every one of his productions experimented with this historic problem in some new way. When Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma opened in 1943, at the same time as Lady in the Dark, its overwhelming ease and success were painful for Weill. Rodgers and Hammerstein had a natural affinity for the American musical and produced a new masterpiece in that genre almost every year. With the war over in 1946, Weill was commissioned to write a liturgical choral piece, the Kiddush, for the Park Avenue Synagogue in New York. The next year, he traveled to Palestine to see his parents after a 14-year separation. It fell to him to tell his parents of the death of their oldest son, who'd also immigrated to New York. Kurt Weill had always favored librettos with serious subjects and moral resonance, either the social satire of his Brecht collaborations, the possible revelations of psychoanalysis, or a portrait of tenement life in New York City. His last work, Lost in the Stars, was an adaptation of Alan Patton's novel Cry the Beloved Country, about the poison of apartheid in South Africa. The title song is about a crisis of faith and an attempt to explain the meaning of life to a child. Lost in the Stars, sung here by Judy Garland in 1963, seems particularly heartrending in light of Weill's own life and the suffering of his fellow Jews.
But I've been walking through the night and day till my eyes get weary and my head turns gray, and sometimes it seems maybe God's gone away, forgetting the promise that we all heard him say, and we're lost out here in the stars, little stars, big stars, blowing through the night, and we're lost out here in the stars, little stars, big stars, blowing through the night, and we're lost out here in the
Kurt Weill died very suddenly at the age of 50 from a congenital heart defect. Lotte Lenya outlived her husband by 33 years and devoted herself with great success to the restoration and preservation of his musical legacy. A few months before his death, Weill had written to his parents that his 25 years of ceaseless work had only partially rewarded him. He wasn't satisfied, and he hoped for a fuller realization of his goals in the future. His early death deprived him of regaining the laurels he'd earned during the Weimar years. He had no way of knowing that his early works would triumphantly reemerge, treasured by both European and American audiences. He couldn't know that all of his music, with time, would be seen as a brilliant whole, essential to the 20th century experience.